Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My guest today is Dr. Maggie Nassif, the Executive Director of Fulbright Commission in Egypt. It's great having you with us, Dr. Maggie.
Thank you, Hala.
I have a lot of questions for you, but let's take a look at your profile, then we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Dr. Maggie, you have been the Executive Director of Fulbright since 2014, and you are a Fulbright alumni, and you also spent a semester conducting research in Cairo, and you have studied business at Wharton School of Business, and you have special interests in literature, in feminism, in pop literature, and so on. Tell me more about your interest, your educational background.
Thank you. Well, I started as a literature student and then a graduate student and junior faculty of literature, comparative literature, and had an interest, like you said, in women's studies. When I left to the States, that was before I finished my PhD, I started teaching there and started getting involved in projects that were federally funded through the U.S. Department of Education, and started working with business students. So I started taking business classes.
Because it's very difficult to shift from literature to business. I mean, totally different disciplines.
In certain ways, they are very different because it's more goal-oriented.
Yes.
So when you had a project, you set a goal. You have to set like milestones where you go to benchmark your success. You have to understand your tools. You know, the team you are managing. You have to learn how to manage people. And how to achieve results. So it's a very goal-oriented process. But the people management aspect of it is actually something that you learn from the humanities, you know, to have an insight, to stop and think about backgrounds of people, how to communicate, how to, you know, how to get your message through, how to read people. That part is actually has an overlap with humanities. So that, in that sense, my training in literature helped me.
That's great. Okay, now you are the Executive Director of Fulbright Commission in Egypt. Tell me about the role Fulbright has been playing throughout the past 60 years.
The organization has been in Egypt since 1949. So we are almost 70 years old. We are 100% binational. So we get our funding from the Egyptian government as well as the U.S. government. As the executive director, I get my directions from a board that is comprised of 8 members. 4 are Egyptian, mostly from academia, and 4 are from the U.S., represented by different organizations, as well as community members who are American who live in Egypt. So we really have this binational vision And we are this intellectual space, academic space. We have over 5,000 alumni, Egyptian alumni, and over 1,000 US alumni who came to Egypt as American students and scholars. And like you said, I lived in the US for 20 years, and when I was living in the US, I came to Egypt as a US scholar and spent a semester doing research. And so these synergies, you know, between the different, the two cultures, two academic systems, as well as the several diverse fields that our alumni come from, create a wonderful synergy that we try to utilize to promote our programs, recruit. We have a mandate to recruit from regional universities. So we have gone to Aswan, Ina, Bani Suef, Ismailia, Damanhur, all over. And we try to, of course, recruit more women. We, especially in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, we're trying to get more girls to be involved in research in the US in these fields. So we really have this very inclusive vision. The same with the US, we recruit from universities in the US that are diverse to bring Americans from there, but we also send students to Alabama, Kentucky, Arizona, Wyoming, so we're not just along the coasts in America either.
Okay. Tell me more about the programs. Are they tailored for specific needs or they are general?
That's a good question. We have both. So, for instance, there was, you know, the wisdom that Egypt needs more STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So we received a very generous grant for an extra number of master degrees. They're about an extra 25 to 30 more scholarships every year for the next 5 years. And so this is the program that we have open now, and I would like to encourage your viewers to go to our website, Fulbright-Egypt, and look up the student HEI program, because this is a program that is open now for master degrees. We also have master degrees for the humanities, but there are extra 25 to 30 scholarships every year now just for sciences.
That's great.
So that is tailored. We also have a program called the Hubert Humphrey program, which is for mid-career professionals, and we change the specialities every year according to the needs of you know, Egyptian institutions. This is
What do you mean by mid-career professionals? I need to understand that first.
Right. Well, we typically Fulbright had worked with academia.
Okay.
So we have programs for professors and
okay.
for students, graduate students.
Okay.
This is a program for professionals, for employees of the government, for employees of organizations
Okay.
like we have agriculture, communication, higher education, economic development, so bankers can apply. So that's what we mean by professionals. So they are not academic. They are in the field, they are practitioners, and there isn't really an age, there used to be an age requirement for that, to be between 30 to 50. Now there isn't an age requirement, but we still would like people to be in that range. You know, people we can send and invest in to train who are young enough to still stay in the workforce for another 10 or 20 years, but also who are not very junior, so when they come back, they, you know, they can, they're leaders. It's a kind of it's a program for preparing high caliber leaders.
Now I understand what is meant by mid-career professionals. Okay. Dr. Maggie, Fulbright organizes very important conferences, and there is a very important conference that is going to start tomorrow, inshallah, under the title of health. I mean, health is the topic, and this is the second in a series of 3 conferences, as you told me before air. You told me that the first one was about natural resources, water, energy, and food. Conference is about health, and the third upcoming conference is going to be about connecting academia and business. I think that the 3 themes of the 3 conferences are very important.
Exactly.
Tell me about tomorrow's conference before we get more details.
Okay. So Egypt was chosen to host these 3 conferences, which are the first conferences for Arab alumni to get together and talk about how they benefited from their Fulbright experience, and moving forward, how can we have connections across the Middle East. Like you said, we hosted one that was very successful. We had about 20 Arab alumni from Lebanon, Oman, Yemen, Iraq, and they got together and discussed natural resources. Tomorrow we have another 17 or 18 meeting to discuss health-related issues, public health, the cost of health care, you know, the different awareness campaign, cancer for women, you know, hepatitis C and what have you. Not so much from a clinical, you know, like physician type research, but more from public health awareness. And the the general access to health. The conference is sponsored by the several partners, the U.S. State Department, Amid East are our partners. The Commission took the lead on this, the Supreme Council for Egyptian Universities, and the gala dinner will feature Dr. Maher Rabat, former minister, and will be held under the auspices of the chair of the Fulbright Commission, Dr. Ashraf Hatem, the former Minister of Health and head of the Supreme Council of Egyptian Universities. We also received a generous grant from the U.S. Embassy to bring an American nursing expert, because nursing is very important to Egypt, and it's really where we need to make breakthroughs. And so
we need a lot of development in this regard.
Yes.
Dr. Maggie, to be honest, we have 2 sectors here in Egypt that require a lot of attention and that really require immediate reform. I'm talking about the education sector and the health sector. Both sectors here are essential to the Egyptian citizen, and unfortunately they are suffering from so many problems. So I believe that such conferences would actually help in upgrading this type of service.
Yes, yes, and really it will happen through partnerships. You know, I've been in Egypt for 2 years. I go to wonderful events about education, and I hear the brightest and the smartest. You know, we've been blessed with so many really smart people who are taking the lead on education. It's not that we don't know what Egypt needs in terms of education. The problem is the sheer numbers. You know, the first thing you hear is that there are 22 million students in the education system. So that's really where the problem is, that there are so many students
who are not qualified for the market. I mean, the market needs, there is a gap between those students and the market needs.
Right. And so this is where the third conference we're hosting, where we are working with partners at MCHAM, the Egyptian Federation for Industries, you know, the Business Association in Alexandria, really working with our partners to figure out the way to do it. And like I said, the embassy has helped us bring Dr. Elaine Bond, who's the former Dean of Nursing at BYU, to talk to colleagues from the nursing community. And we held a conference with them 2 days ago. And so through these partnerships, and this is really the place of Fulbright. You know, we are an American Egyptian organization. We're binational, and we bring partners together to talk exclusively about education, about young people in Egypt and what they need and how we can help. And you know, it is not going to be very easy, but it is very rewarding, Hala. The wonderful young people we meet, the most enjoyable part of my job is to go out and to meet young talent in, like I said, Minya, Ina, Damanhur, very, very bright young people, and they just want a chance. And that's what Fulbright is doing. We're giving them these chances, you know, for fully funded programs. So again, I encourage your viewers to go look at our website. We have enjoyed generous funding, and we are really look for the best and the brightest to send to get educated in the U.S. and then come back and help Egypt continue to be a very important
there
place.
There is a focus by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on both women and youth. So perhaps recruiting women and youth, and as you mentioned, young girls. By the way, did you notice that the young girls in those governorates that you mentioned are really very smart? Really smart, and they are very so capable. Into learning whatever comes their way.
Right, right, very capable, and just waiting for the chance, which we are hoping to be the brokers of that chance.
But did you notice that there are some challenges facing?
Of course,
progress of those young.
Of course, and some of it, you know, there are so many challenges. Exactly. Some are, of course, resources. You know, when you have such a big pipeline of students, 22 million, you know, you hear like we need 7,000 new schools, we need 57,000 classrooms. The numbers are staggering, but also some of it. Is cultural. That's what we need to work through our alumni who come back and model wonderful examples. For instance, you know, getting more middle-class girls to go into nursing. Because traditionally nursing, you know, people don't want to send their kids to nursing.
Because they come back late, or they have night shifts and they have concerns.
Or they all want to be doctors.
Yeah, exactly. Another issue.
Or for instance, technical education. I mean, we have this wonderful new program. We're working with the Supreme Council of Egyptian Universities, and we're working with the ministry. The two deputy ministers of the higher education are actually on our board, Dr. Assam Khamis and Dr. Hussam al-Malahi. Also, Dr. Yasser Sa'r, former president of Helwan University, is on our board. And so these are people who are very much into technical education and the idea of from the lab to the factory process. And so we are working with them to modernize and reform technical education. We are sending a group this summer of 20 leaders in the technical and vocational education field to the U.S. for 6 weeks to Florida.
That's great news. And I believe that this is a great step in changing the stereotyping or the stigmas or type of mentality that restricts the parents. They want their children to be engineers or doctors. This is a new type of thinking, and with your great efforts, it's going to work out.
Thank you, Hala.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maggie Nassif, Executive Director of Fulbright Commission in Egypt. Thank you very much. Enjoyed talking to you, and looking forward to more success stories to hear from you, inshallah.
My pleasure, inshallah.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this edition of Women's World. I'm Hala Al-Hamilawi signing off.